For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Dickson, and I'm the founder of the Rainmaker Foundation. For those of you who do know me, you'll know that about several hundred years ago, I was challenged to run the London Marathon, and thank you, Fergus. Please leave. And I got round and I survived in a remarkably speedy time of 6 hours and 30 minutes. Ray, thank you. Thank you. But before I went round the marathon with a chum, I met a young girl who had cerebral palsy and couldn't move and couldn't talk very well, and we bought her a powered wheelchair with the proceeds of the money that we raised at the London Marathon, so that she could whiz about on her own. 1 year later, we started a charity called Whiz Kids, which helped disabled children move, and actually there are at least 2 people in the room here who were involved in that. And now, I'm pleased to say that it now is a proper charity. It has 60 people working for it. It's taken 75 million quid since it started and helped 7,000 young people who couldn't move to move. Which just goes to show that if you do something remotely daft and mildly heroic, something can actually come off. It was the first time, if you like, that I discovered the link between generosity and people being happier as a result of giving. And so I decided to go and write a book about generosity, as you do. I don't know why I did it, but I've done it. And so I've written this book on generosity, which you're all going to get a copy of when you leave. So a few words on generosity. Generosity isn't about money or material wealth. It's, I think it's an attitude of mind. It's a way of living your life with an open heart and an open hand, and most critically with an open mind. And we all know how forgiveness is generosity, for example. Encouraging people who are having a hard time is generosity. Giving up your time to help people is one of the biggest things of generosity. It doesn't have to be related to money at all. And we all know, of course, that when somebody does something generous to us, we feel wonderful about life, and we also feel much better about ourselves when we're able to help someone else. And actually, it was Ralph Waldo Emerson said, it's one of the beautiful compensations in life that nobody can truly set out to help another person without helping themselves. But people need to know, well, you know, what can I actually do? So there's lots of ideas in the book, and we want you all to come up with ideas tonight, but I want to just do 3 ideas to give you a gist of what we're on about. The first is that generosity begins at home. So, how are all of your family and friends? How are those members of the family that you haven't seen for a very long time? How are all your friends you haven't seen since you left university, or they moved to the country, or you moved to another country? This weekend, I think it would be a really good idea for you to ring up somebody you haven't spoken to for ages and ask them how they are, and arrange to meet for lunch or tea or even a drink, and find out what they're up to. Wasting time with friends is not wasting time. Second thing, secret acts of generosity. Doing secret acts of generosity that people don't expect and that you don't talk about are incredibly powerful. For example, you could buy a coffee or a cinema ticket for the person in the queue behind you. Be a surprise to them. You could give a flower seller some money to give a bunch of flowers to the next person they see that they think would like it. You can speak to somebody who never normally speak to, somebody who you might even generally ignore, or people who are generally alone or lonely. Go out of your way to talk to them. I mean, it's an irony that within 100 yards of here, there are people now bedding down for the night in 2012 on the streets. And in fact, we did talk to somebody who said that he had just spoken to a homeless person and asked him about how he could help, offer him some money. And the chap said, I don't want any money, I want company. But that's moving on from that. And then you could give somebody a compliment, pay somebody a compliment, say something nice to people. Every now and then somebody comes up to me and they say, haven't you lost weight? And of course, I haven't. But I feel fabulous for about 30 seconds. And so we can all be Superman. Superman's role in life, as you probably know, was to fight for social justice and generally save the world. But actually, we can all be Superman. We can all actually help a child in India who's about to go off instead of to school to work in the fields, or worse, be taken off into the world of prostitution. We can all help a family or a young African child learn, contribute to their education. Doesn't cost very much. It's something minuscule like £15 a month. We can provide a microloan for a family to start their own business for as little as 50 to 100 quid. And you could get together for a group of you and raise 1,500 quid to buy a well for a village to give them fresh water. In other words, to the bottom billion in the world who don't actually know what's going to happen to them at the end of this week, every single one of us here can do something special to help them. It's all really a question of trying to create a world rather than acquire it, and trying to build a world of you and me, not you or me. Well, you'll be pleased to know that having written a chapter about happiness in the book, I had to read anything and everything about what makes people happy. And it all comes down to relationships with others and the ability to contribute to the lives of others. It doesn't matter what you read. You can read endless reports and books and surveys and films. It all comes down to those two things. And people said to me in the last few months, you know, isn't this a particularly daft thing to do, to start a charitable foundation and a global movement to encourage people to be generous in these appalling economic times, you know, in dark and dangerous times? Well, of course, that's exactly the point of it, really. If ever there was a time that we all needed to get a grip and to help people, all of us who have enough, to help people who don't have anything at all, this is the time to get a grip and do it. Martin Luther King wrote this several years ago, obviously. He said, "Life's most urgent question is, what are you doing for the lives of others?"